Welcome to today's 5-minute Bible study in the book of Colossians. We're in Colossians chapter 4. We're still looking at verse 14. Now, the last several sessions, we've been looking at Paul's final words in his Colossian letter, and he includes greetings from a number who are with him in Rome. And they also send their greetings to the Colossians. So we looked at each of them in turn, and there's one more to look at, and he's a very interesting character, a fellow by the name of Demas. Verse 14 says, "Our dear friend Luke the doctor," we talked about Luke yesterday, "he sends greetings, and Demas sends greetings." Now, who is this Demas? Well, we don't know a whole lot about him. He's only mentioned 3 times in the New Testament. Here in Colossians, sending his greetings. He's also mentioned in the book of Philemon, sending his greetings as well. Now, that's not surprising. You remember we mentioned several times that Philemon and Colossians were written by at the same time, and Philemon is a member of the church in Colossae. So both the letter of Colossians and Philemon are going to the city of Colossae at the same time, and so it's natural that Paul mentions the same sort of people in both of them, and he does. And so Demas is mentioned in Colossians and in Philemon. So what can we surmise about him? Well, he obviously was a convert of Paul. We don't know what church he came from, but at some point he had been converted by the ministry of Paul. Paul had seen potential in him, obviously. And so at some point, Demas has joined the missionary party with Paul. He's in Rome with Paul, helping him during this time of imprisonment. So we can think rather highly of Demas at this point because he was a convert and he was a partner in Paul's missionary journeys. But I said he's mentioned a third time, and that is in the book of 2 Timothy. And this is why the story of Demas, as little as we know about it, is such a sad story and a tragic story because of what Paul says in 2 Timothy. So let's turn to that real quick. In 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 9 and 10, Paul mentions Demas again. Now, 2 Timothy is the last letter of Paul in the New Testament. It's the last letter we have that he wrote. So in so many ways, 2 Timothy is the last word of Paul to the church. In 2 Timothy, Paul is again in prison in Rome. This is a later imprisonment than the one mentioned in Colossians. And in this imprisonment, it's after the great fire in Rome. It's during the time of the persecution. And Paul is about to be executed. We know that Paul was martyred in the city of Rome at the end of this second imprisonment. He's writing to his friend Timothy, urging Timothy to come to him, hopefully before the end. And in the course of this letter, he mentions Demas. Notice what he says. So we're in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 9 and 10. This is what Paul says to Timothy. "Do your best to come to me quickly, for Demas, because he loved this world, has deserted me." And he's gone to Thessalonica. So Demas had been with Paul, it seems, up until this second and final imprisonment, caring for Paul's needs as he had done in the past, but he has deserted Paul. And so Paul is alone, and so he's asking Timothy to come as quickly as he can. I said Demas is a sad story because he deserts the gospel. He was a believer, that's clear. He was an associate of Paul, that's clear. We see this in Colossians and Philemon. But at some point when the going gets really, really hard, he deserts Paul and obviously deserts the gospel. He has loved this world and has deserted me and gone to Thessalonica. Demas began well in the Christian faith, but he did not end well. He did not hold on. He abandoned the faith and abandoned the gospel and abandoned Paul. So Demas is a tragic story of one who once walked the way of Christ, and yet because his love for the world proved to be greater than his love of Christ, when persecution arose, when it got tough, he abandoned the gospel. Over and over and over again, the gospel tells us to hold on, to continue to believe. Paul at one time in his letter of Romans, says, I keep myself under strict discipline, so after I've preached the gospel to others, I will not become an outcast myself. Of course, he never did. But he recognized you must hold on in your life of faith. Demas did not. And so Demas serves as a warning of those who begin to walk the walk of faith but then abandon it. He abandoned the gospel because he loved the world more than Christ. May Jesus always be preeminent in our life. May we hold to him, not the world. And may we never walk away from faith as Demas did. His story is a sad story and a warning for all of us to continue to believe, to continue to hold on to Jesus, and to never abandon the gospel. All right, join us tomorrow as we continue looking at this last portion of the book of Colossians in our 5-minute Bible study.